the topic I'm excited to hit
The
on.
floor is yours.
I so look, I just want to say up front, I've always supported Zion, right? Since Duke, since the high school clips, I've always been a Zion guy. I'm like Zion's so good. I love Zion. He didn't win in March Madness. They did Duke did not do what they needed to do in March Madness. That loss was so frustrating. But I said I was like, I think Giannis will. I think Zion, not Giannis. I think Zion will figure it out. When he got drafted, I'm like, I'm not too worried. And even when he got hurt, I mean, before he got hurt, I forgot which season it was. I think it was the season after the bubble, because obviously he played in that for his rookie year was that pandemic year. But when he was on the floor, he had like some historic stat like 31. Like he was putting up 31 when he was healthy. Huh? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, my brother came in. But Zion put up like 31 when he was healthy. And I was like, okay, he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out. They got Brandon Ingram. And I was like, okay, this is a nice little core that New Orleans has. But Zion could not stay healthy. And now we're kind of at this point where it's like he's considered a bust. And it's hard for. I've defended him for a good 3 years. Where I'm like, he's not a bust. He's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out. Photos came out. Oh, he's fat. Oh, he looks slim. He looked really slim at one point of the year, and then now he's out. They rest McCollum. They sit all of their guys.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what's gonna. I don't know if I'm New Orleans. You got to move on. You got to move on. And I think them sitting them out. I don't know if they're sitting them out because it's like, okay, let's try to get a pick, or if it's we need to
Well, yeah,
seriously think of
that's
what to
exactly
do.
that's exactly why. That's exactly why. And they're doing the right thing, right? So, with the question like we've had the last 15 minutes, where's the best place for him? Where's the best fit for him?
Well, I think that leads to my next point where I said it years ago. I was like, I think him and RJ are going to find a way to link up and play together. But now I could see him and Jaw finding a way to link up and play together, because they were in the same draft class. They're decently close. He's not going to be able to play with RJ because Toronto's kind of figuring some things out over there. But I could see that happening. I could see them trying to figure out a way to link up, whether it's in New Orleans or Memphis or whether it's somewhere else. I could see that being an option. And then after that, it's just going to be who's going to take a risk on him. You mentioned Chicago. Maybe Chicago takes a risk on him to pair with that young guy, Bazelis, Kobe White. Maybe they take a risk. Maybe Miami, but I don't think Miami wants to do that. So I think I don't know. I don't know who would take a risk on him.
I'm looking here, and I'm looking for fits I'm looking for fits for Zion.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe in that type of with he and Ja, but they were 1 and 2 in that draft. Maybe because Memphis wants to move on from Ja, and it looks like New Orleans is going to do the same thing. What's wrong with swapping number 1 and number 2, and then get some ancillary pieces around and see what happens? Because it clearly hasn't happened for Zion in New Orleans, and it clearly hasn't happened for Ja in Memphis. I think we can attest to that, especially with the coach being fired in Memphis. I think that's a done deal.
Ramon?
I think Josh stays in Memphis. I think the firing of the coach is a last chance hope of trying to save and keep Ja and get him right. Uh, but I think Ja's a hard player to win a championship with, and I think that a lot of people are starting to see that. Zion, I like the fact that they shut him down because he got a lot of stuff he got to get right. Diet, nutrition, workout. He got to get his ducks in a row. And don't take a chance, whether you're going to keep him or you're not going to keep him, don't take a chance of losing him in these last 5 or 6, 7 games to injury because he's definitely prone to be injured or to get injured. But this is a great evaluation time for him. Like, hey, I read somewhere that he hired another nutritionist and whatever, building up his team to keep him healthy and on the court. And what I think that a lot of these, I don't want to say bad organizations, but organizations don't have the tradition of winning. They don't have a plan for these athletes when they walk in the door. They're just good. He's a great college player. I really don't need a plan for him. They got to have a plan. I think that they're sitting back trying to figure out a plan for this kid, and the plan may be to move him. But whatever it is, whether it's keeping him or moving him, I think this is a great time or a time that they're really sitting back and saying, hey, we got to get a plan for this guy, whether it's here or somewhere else.
Yeah, I would have thought, man, with the talent they had if, on paper in New Orleans, I would have felt that they, you're talking, at the worst coast, Western Conference Final. You had Zion, you had at the time
Lonzo.
with the Bron trade, right? You had Ingram, you had Randall when he came in there from the Laker trade when the Lakers traded for AD, right? So you had all these talented players there, and it just seemed like it never meshed with regard to Ingram and all these guys around. Think about Ingram and Zion are Duke guys, so it's not like they didn't have some type of familiarity with each other, even though they didn't play together. There's a Duke guy, so I'm sure in the summertime they're out there hooping, right? So it just for me, I just think it was a bad mix of players. And at this point, this is Zion's fifth year, right? Or six, this is year five, right? So I would say at this point, you gave it your best. You got to try something else because you are in New Orleans and you're not going to be a hot. Think about this: these teams or these smaller markets, they're not going to be hotbeds. So you gotta grow from within. And you gave it a shot when you gave him that big, the extension, and it hasn't panned out. So
Yeah,
I gave it the best shot.
they, I I think a team that, and I think Miami could move for him if they wanted to. I could see that being an option, because I really like what Harrow and Bam have played really well in their last
Mm-hmm.
couple of games. They did lose to Memphis by on a buzzer beater. Surprise! That was a good game to watch. But I could see Miami moving for Zion for Ja. I think he's gonna have suitors. He's gonna have more suitors than Zion. Zion's a tough case though. I don't know who particularly is going to want Zion because I think the big thing it's got to be a team with structure, right? And I think Ramon you made a good point about, somebody has to put him in the right direction on what he wants to do because I think New Orleans just kind of gave him a little bit of free reign on okay, you get your nutritionist, you do that. Somebody needs to sit him down and say, "Okay, we're gonna set your plan for you and you're gonna follow this." And I think that somebody has to step up and do that. And we talked about Pat Riley and the Heat last week and that culture and everything else. And to me, I think Riley would be the one that would do it. I think a lot, and we've talked about it before, Daryl, that a lot of these teams they just kind of let the players do what they want. Pat Riley hasn't really been like that. Obviously, the Jimmy situation got out of hand, but I mean, I think he would seriously if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think there would be a lot of fight on Pat Riley's side to get Zion in a certain direction at least. And if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't. But I think Riley would be the one that would not be. He
Well,
doesn't care who Zion is or what he thinks. I think he would do the best job at it if they made that move. Or maybe I don't know about everybody else though.
I mean, I could see that potentially because again, they've got that the vaunted Miami workout. You got to be a certain body fat and all, and that's all great, right? And that would probably fall right in the heels of Zion because he has some weight
Yeah,
issues, and that's one thing. That's why that's great. Got you. However, there's still some things that are going on in Miami that people don't want to talk about. You have talent out there, and it hasn't meshed, right? You come along. The trade for the young guy from Carolina didn't work out well. Then you got the Jaime Jaquez situation that's kind of blowing up in their face. Bam has kind of regressed since last year over the summer, coming off the Olympic deal. How happy is he? Is he your guy that you want as your five guy? Yeah, he's a stretch guy. Do you want him as your five guy? If you don't, maybe he comes into play with this Zion thing. Maybe you're talking about a big blockbuster deal and shake things up, right? Because I don't know that he, Bam, and Tyler Hero that three-person core is going to be a core for Miami, even if New Orleans is looking to move Zion and it's potentially to Miami. I don't know. I think they're going to have to shake something else up with that.
yeah. I think I could see them maybe rocking with that for maybe a year or so. I think the big thing for Zion is he's been viewed as, especially in New Orleans, as that number one option. I think if you give him time to be that second or third option on some nights, I think at some nights, Ingram and McCollum may have taken over for him, but I think in Miami, you can kind of figure out because there is questions in Miami. I'll give you that with Harrow. What is Harrow? Is he a first option? Is he a second option? Bam Adebayo, Zion. I think they all have questions of where they fit, and I think if you kind of put those three together, you can kind of figure out okay who's the weakest link. Who can we get rid of and try to bring in that first option. I think it would be a nice experiment for Miami because they're basically in that situation where you either fully, take down the walls and take everything else and start from the foundation, or
Right.
you try and experiment. We got 10 minutes left here. I'm gonna add what final thoughts on New Orleans and then also Ja because we kind of brought him into this conversation. Ramon, let's start with you since me and Daryl were going
I'm
back and
also
forth
New
there.
Orleans.
Go ahead.
I'm also New Orleans. They got some real good food and some great liquor. So if you're a big body person, you probably need to leave.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. Leave. Three things in New Orleans that can affect your game. If you like food, you like women, and you like alcohol, you probably need to be traded. Memphis, Ja, Ja, put down the guns, whether it's a real gun or it's finger guns. Put them down, bro. It ain't for you. That's not you, man. Dunk on people. Scream at your daddy. Play to the crowd. Put the real guns and the finger guns in your holster, bro. Please.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay. Okay. Darrell, not Darrell, Daryl. Jesus, I gotta quit doing that. Go ahead.
That's all good, man. So, but with that said, and Ramon's right? Be who you are, right? You want to be something that you're not, and all it's done is soured people on you, and that's why I believe that he not only does he leave Memphis, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for someone to take him on. You're not looking at just talent for talent. You're looking at the things that come with that as well, right? And there are certain franchises that say, no, we're not doing that. We're not going. So out of the 30 teams, I promise you, there are 15 that saying that we're not in the Josh sweepstakes. That's not us, right? Yep. You can call it culture or wherever you want. And now you're talking about you got 15 teams that say they may be interested, but guess what? Your price is going to go up because we're taking on your potential problem. And if he has another incident, if it's a gun incident or anything like that, I'm calling it now 1 year suspension at minimum. They just fined him $75,000. He's had a history of it. If there's another incident for him or from him, I'm going to say a 1 year suspension. And I'm talking about from a gun perspective. I'm not talking about a technical foul or being thrown out of the game or what have you. I'm talking about for a gun issue. I'm saying 1 year suspension.
Okay.
And again, who wants to take on that potentially when you got a guy who believes, he can kind of do what he wants?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be an interesting offseason. The NBA draft's definitely going to be interesting. I think that's where we'll see a lot of the moves. And then free agency, we'll see how that plays out as well. Up next, we're going to talk about the NFL draft, and then we'll talk about March Madness and the Final Four, because the Final Four was really good. We'll talk about Cooper Flagg a little bit as well, so that will be the next segment. We will see you guys for that.